So I'm sitting in my G12 BMW 740 Li. I've had the car for about 3 months now. I've done about 4 to 5,000 kilometers. And this is a good time to talk about this car. I have covered why I bought this car in a previous video. But what I'll talk today is what I've learned about this car, what I've learned about owning a depreciated luxury, a depreciated modern luxury car in general. What you should know about that particular journey, and what you should know, of course, about the G12 BMW 7 Series or the 740 with the B58 engine. Okay, so let's go one by one. Let's talk about this car itself and then we get into broader topics. And I'm going to step out so you can get a better look at the car. This is the car that I got. Just stepping further away, you can see it better. This is a 740 Li from late 2015, so this is one of the first ones. This is in Cashmere Silver, and of course it has a Cognac interior. The interior has Dakota leather, which is a standard BMW leather. Well, not standard, second level, not Napa. And this has upgraded 20-inch rims versus the 18s that would naturally come on it. This is a very, very high spec model. So this is a standard car that came to Singapore. This is the spec that they got. So you may recognize things that are not there on all 740s, like the double sunroof. Of course, it has paddle shifters, but even the controls, it has a ceramic controls. It has the, ignoring this cheap plastic bottle and this holder, but it has the full, it's not got the full package with the touchscreen, but it does have rear seats that are as adjustable as the front seats, almost can't bend as much. So yeah, it's pretty well spec'd up car. Okay, now let's talk about this car in particular. To make this easier, I'll talk about what I like, what I dislike, and what I've learned. What I like, the ride quality, even on 20-inch wheels, is tremendous rather. Never experienced anything like it. Sorry, apologies for that. Number two, the car is incredibly agile for its size. It's a 5.3 meter long car, but it has 4-wheel steer, so it is incredibly agile, and it feels light because the car is light. It has the carbon core. The body is made out of this carbon, plastic, aluminum hybrid, whatever BMW learned during their initial electric program. So you definitely feel that. It is remarkably fast and fuel efficient for the size of the engine and size of car. To give you perspective, what I get in this car is about 12 to 13 kilometers to the liter on the highway. You can roughly multiply that by 3 for the UK MPG. So you could say like whatever, 36 to 40 mpg on the highway. In the city, I get about 7, which would be about 20 plus mpg, 7 kilometers to a liter. So mixed, it depends on what I do, which is similar to what I got on my previous 335i, a little bit better than my Audi S5, and similar to what I got on my Alpina B3, which is with the N55 engine. So for this big limousine with that level of performance, and performance wise, I would say this feels about as fast as the S5 that I had. Definitely slower than the Alpina, faster than the 335, the F30 335, way faster than the F whatever 528i. So that's a rough reference for you. So that's what I like about it. It is incredibly, the interior, some would say is a bit plain for a luxury car. It looks so similar to the 5 or 3, but actually it is, I think the interior is one of the best parts about the car. It's quite luxurious. I can't expect anything more. And even though this is almost a 10-year-old car at this point, it has basically all the, all the features that you would expect of a much more modern car. It has a touchscreen over here, basically all the features that are on this car later made their way to lesser BMW models. One thing I don't like, I have to mention, is that these particular buttons are touchscreen buttons versus physical buttons, and these are the worst part of the car. Actually, I don't like that. I would just prefer normal buttons for everything. Kind of shows you what I like. So further likes about the car, you may think that a long wheelbase car is excessive, but when you have a long wheelbase car, and sometimes when you ferry around passengers like me, and my brother and our wives went on a road trip to Malaysia, I realized that having a car that in which each of the 4 passengers is equally well catered for is quite a good thing, because it just is nice that you don't have to compromise because you're sitting in the back seat. So there's that. It's a thing that I never appreciated about, because I never had a car where the back seat was not the lesser option. Here the back seat is an equal or sometimes a better option. So that's one of the things I like about the car. What do I not like about the car? Well, it's more a criticism of the brief than the car itself. The car is so refined that it has tremendous speed masking. So as a consequence, you never notice the performance. You see the speedo going up like crazy, but the car feels subdued. And what doesn't help is that the engine is deliberately refined and so smooth, but even in sports mode. Now you could say this is not a right criticism for the limousine, but knowing what this engine, how it sounds in say a 340 M340, you feel that, okay, I need to unleash this engine a little bit. And that kind of links with the overall my criticism for the car, which is not for everybody, because I'm an enthusiastic driver, in which case you ask me why I'm sticking to this car. We'll get to these questions. The main thing is it lacks a bit of drama. It's agile, but when you put it in sports mode, it's still very comfortable in sports mode. So what I'm saying is there is scope for it to be a little bit more agile, a little bit more hardcore, even in sports mode. Comfort is great, but in sports, I would like it to be a bit more aggressive. So that's one main thing that I think that is my criticism. And not a criticism again of the car, but just a general thing is, yes, you have to be aware of the size of the car when you're parking. Now, this is good and bad. I'll tell you why. The good is this car has such amazing camera systems, and I know that they're percolated to lesser BMWs now, that parallel parking it as a cinch, parking it anywhere is quite easy. I was driving my 630 convertible, which is a 2005 E64. That car has a larger turning circle than this car. This car has an incredibly short turning circle due to the four-wheel steer. And with the cameras, you can park anywhere. But yes, you have to be aware of the size of it. But you'll be surprised. I park it in lots where the car is literally parallel parking lots where the car is literally touching either side, or rather interfering on either side of the lines. Right? It's literally hitting the line on both sides. Yet I can fit it into that. So the size is not as much of a problem as you might think. But yes, it is something that you have to be aware of. Now, let's talk about what I would like this car to be if it was designed for me. And what I think anybody who's considering such a car should know. If it was designed for me, I think there are 3 or 4 things I want to do. One is the engine needs to be louder, at least in sports mode. So I would definitely put an aftermarket exhaust, maybe an Akrapovic, maybe a Remus, maybe, I don't know, I'll have to look it up. So I'm looking that up if I decide to keep the car, because in a year's time, rather in November, I need to make a decision on whether to keep the car or not. I wanted an Alpina B7, that's a different story. But the B7, at least in Singapore, much more expensive, much higher road tax. And ultimately, I think the front of the B7 will be heavier because of the large 4.4 litre V8. This one having a mere 6-cylinder, the front is not that heavy. That's, this sort of thing is kind of overlooked. Sometimes lesser models are better because they have lighter front ends, and so they handle better. The 730, which has a 2-litre engine, would handle even better. So that's just something to know. More power doesn't mean a better car always, because sometimes you have to add a lot of weight to get the power. So anyways, I would add a lot of oral drama, and I would want to figure out a way if I can get sharper handling in sports mode without ruining the ride. I don't know how to do that. I don't want to change the shocks because the shocks are great. But yeah, those are the 2 things only. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this color. I would like to wrap it in something like red or something. I love red cars. I had an Alpha in this color interior, tan interior with a red exterior. It's one of my favorite combinations. Red exterior, dark red exterior, like Alpha red or Imola red for BMW with a tan interior. That's one of my favorite combinations. So that's the only thing I would change about it. Now, moving on to somebody more generally speaking. Should you buy these large luxury cars that are very highly depreciated? I mean, this car from a depreciation standpoint in Singapore is this. Buying a 740 from a depreciation standpoint is cheaper than buying a M140, the 1 series. So the 7 series with the same engine is cheaper than the 1 series, right? That's an extreme illustration of the point of how well depreciated these cars are. And the reason that they're well depreciated is people perceive them to be full of problems because they're full of technology, because they're large cars. And people are scared of driving them because they are so long, like 5.3 meters long. Both of these issues can be mitigated. Issue number one can be mitigated if you look for the right car. So I looked at least 4 or 5 different of these models, and I found this particular one where not only was the interior in a great shape, but the air suspension had been replaced. And in fact, just when I got the car, the air pump was also replaced. So the biggest source of expense on this car, which is the air suspension potentially going, was taken care of, at least for now. So that's one big thing that you can mitigate. As far as electricals are concerned, reality is that there's no getting away from electrical gremlins or sensor gremlins if you buy an old BMW. My old 335i, my old Alpina, all of them I had to get the wheel sensors replaced. So there's no getting away from that. It's not that the 7 Series is much worse. It's, yes, 7 Series does have more electricals, more things to go wrong. But those are not the most expensive things in the world, and you can stay abreast with them. And most of them, unless it's a wheel sensor or something, it's not really going to hamper the driving. So say the seat adjustability goes away, you can live with it for a while you wait for more things to accumulate to get it fixed. So I don't think that's the biggest issue. Right now, this car has 0 issues. It's working 100% perfectly. The issue on the size, I think, is more a question of experience. If you're like me, driving for, I've had a license since 2004, so 21 years at this point. You get used to the size of the car very quickly. And for me, I think no differently whether I take this out or a smaller car. Yes, of course, I'm aware that a smaller car can fit. But honestly, the size of the car, the 5.3 meter length, has not been a problem. The only time is if I'm going on a cramped street. So if you live in a city with very, very cramped streets or something, then you're going to struggle to fit in everywhere. But even for me, my Singapore car parks aren't exactly very big. I've gone to car parks that are from the 70s, so they were not designed. That time, the only car that was 5.3 meters long was probably a Rolls Royce. I've gone to the such car parks, I have been just okay. So if you are an experienced driver, if you are okay for that 1 or 2 seconds of thinking a little bit more, it's not even an inconvenience. It's just a fact of life that the car is a bit bigger when you're reverse parking or you're parallel parking. If you're okay for that 1 or 2 seconds of inconvenience over hours and hours of driving, say every 1 hour you're inconvenienced for like 30 seconds maybe, you can live with the size of it. The size is not the thing. For me, the size of the car is not the issue with the car. So that's where we are. What else? I think the 740 G12 or G11, but I'm going to go with the G12 because it has the larger rear seats. The G11's rear seats are quite cramped, the short wheelbase. There's a very interesting sweet spot in the evolution of the luxury car. A lot of us, even petrol heads, are attracted to the luxury car. We are attracted to the Bentleys and the S-classes. And Bentley is a good example because Rolls-Royce is supposed to be super luxurious. S-class is supposed to be luxurious, not as much as Rolls-Royce. Bentley has a bit of sportingness as well as luxury. And for me, this car does what Bentley is supposed to do really, really well, other than, of course, panache of the looks, because it is remarkably sporty to drive. Like, I'm not obviously, I'm not skidding around the place. I'm not getting the back out. But you know how rear-wheel drive cars, if you put in a little bit of power and you can feel the back. And you can feel it in this car, just like I could feel on my smaller 3 Series. Yes, it's a bigger car, but as I said, weight-wise, this is like maybe 1800 kgs, which is not that much more than today's C-classes, and other cars weigh much more than that, especially the AMG ones, which weigh like 2000 kilos plus. And Teslas are way more heavy, right? So this is not that heavy a car in the modern context, especially for the size. So it's a fun and playful car, right? So the 740 Li is a very interesting blend where it's as luxurious as you can hope for. Yes, maybe the Rolls-Royce will have better leather quality, maybe, and it'll be even quieter, even more of a speed mask. But for all practical purposes, your head of state can go in this, or they can go in a Rolls-Royce, and they will not have much of a difference in their practical experience. In fact, the head of state of Singapore goes in this armored 7 Series of all things. So it's that kind of level of luxury, yet it's exciting for the driver. And I can't think of too many cars that do that. Of course, you can go ahead and think of the better versions of this car. I'm talking just G12 right now, right? Because it has a 750, has an Alpina, has a 760. But the 740 is interesting because it has plenty of power. Car and Driver in the US tested this, and the performance of this car, straight line performance of this 4.8 seconds as measured by them from 0 to 60 miles per hour is the same as the E39 M5. So this is not a slow car. This is a 5-second car. It's not the top model because you can get it even faster, But a 5-second car is by no means slow, yet you have it from a 3-liter engine that's remarkably fuel efficient. So you're getting a little bit of having your cake and eat it too, because you get the size, you get the luxury, you get an engine that is very efficient, yet you get the power. And if you think the power is not enough, a stage 1 or stage 2 will get you into M340 territory. And on paper, this is 335 horsepower. You can get on paper to 400. The reality we know with BMW is these numbers are probably 15-20% higher. So you can have a close to 450, 500 horsepower saloon on a 3-liter engine, doing sub 4.5 seconds, 60 miles per hour, very agile, yet able to transform in an instant with that button to a luxury car. So there we go. What else do I want you to know? No problem so far. Any other observations? Yes. Adaptive mode in this particular car, it's supposed to scan everything and do. I'm less than convinced, and I don't really use it that much. Maybe it's psychological. I either use it in comfort or I use it in sport individual, which I've configured, where it's all sport except the gear shift, which is kept in comfort because I don't need the engine to be dragging. I can handle the gear shifts myself if I want. So I usually drive it in sports individual if I'm by myself, and in comfort if I have passengers. All right, so I hope this was a helpful update for you, and we'll talk more about the car next time.